So now the Packers are 7 practices into training camp, which means we've seen a little bit of Jordan Love so far. And so I want to go through and read different reporters' thoughts on what they've seen from Jordan Love so far. I have 3 different reporters I found articles on, guys who are at practice, Packers beat reporters who are at practice. So I want to read through each of those just so we can sort of have an overarching idea about what each person is seeing and sort of see if we can find a common thread between all of them. I'll also read Packers GM Brian Gudekunst and his thoughts on what he's seen from Love so far. Just because I feel like a week in, you can see different things from different people, and you can wonder, is everyone thinking the same thing, or are people saying different things? So I want to read these different reporters. And if you were at Packers training camp, which I wasn't able to be, but if you were there, then feel free to comment your personal thoughts, and we can see more and more of what people saw from Love so far. So first off, I saw an excerpt from Rob Demovsky of ESPN, and he was on ESPN a few days back. And this is a quote from his appearance. He said this: "We've seen Jordan Love have one really good day. He's had one sort of decent day, and the rest, well, you walk off the practice field thinking that this might be a really long year." So that is Rob Demovsky saying Love had a good day, but the rest of the time, he wonders if it'll be a long year in Green Bay. Then let's move on to the next guy. Bill Huber, Sports Illustrated, said this: "Through 6 live practices, Jordan Love has completed 50 of 94 passes. In 5 of those 6 practices, he's been flirting with 50%. That's not going to cut it in the games, though a veteran secondary has an obvious built-in advantage over a young offense at this early stage of training camp." So the first 2 sort of seem somewhat overall negative. And then let me just read here from Packers GM Brian Gudekunst. So he was asked by a reporter, after 7 practices, how much does that give you an indicator of what Jordan Love is going to be? Gudekunst said this: "Not much. He's done a really nice job. Just like last year, I think the defense kind of had the offense early. That's usually a little bit of the case. It certainly was last year and has been this year. They made some strides over the past few days here." So Gudekunst is noting that last season, even with Rodgers here to start training camp, the defense was playing better overall than the offense. I remember that happening last year, last training camp. The defense looked solid, through the first little while of training camp. And I think when you look at the fact that this Packers offense is so young, of course we have Jordan Love first year as a starter, but you throw in the fact that Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Samori Toure are the veteran, quote unquote veteran players here in their second season, and then you have Jaden Reed, rookie receiver, rookie tight ends in Luke Musgrave and Kraft. And so not only is this offense super young, they've barely had time to really mesh with each other and really get everything down so far in full pads. But then you throw in the defense on the other hand, and overall, I'd say the secondary at least is pretty similar to last season. So this defense has an entire year under their belt. They know what they're doing. They know what their assignments are. On the other hand, this offense has tons of new young players who are all figuring out together. So I would assume that as camp continues to go by, as the season progresses, you would assume that this offense would slowly take steps forward, and this is probably going to be maybe one of the rougher times for the Packers offense just because it's early in camp. The defense knows what's going on. The offense is still trying to figure things out. So that's something to keep in mind and keep an eye on going forward. And then finally, let me share this from Packers Wire. Paul Brettel, he was there at training camp as well. So he said here's some impressive things from Love. It's pretty in-depth, so I'll read it here. He said, "I would say it's the wow throws that he's made. Many saw the downfield pass to Christian Watson down the left sideline when he hit him perfectly in stride. Then there was another that was placed perfectly on Jaden Reed's back shoulder, although he unfortunately couldn't make the catch. Love had another really well-placed ball to Samori Toure, who ran an out and up down the left sideline. If the ball was too far left, Toure could drift out of bounds. If it's too far right, Darnell Savage has a chance to make a play on it. But instead, it was placed where only Toure could get it. There are others that I didn't mention, but in the grand scheme of training camp, it's important to keep in mind that these are still just a few throws. However, these passes show the ceiling Love has as a quarterback and the potential that is there. When a quarterback is able to throw his pass catchers open and not always rely on them winning convincingly or the scheme to help create the separation, it can lead to a whole new level of potential for the offense." So most of you probably saw some of those clips floating around on Twitter of that beautiful throw from Love to Christian Watson, a perfect throw, and another one to Jaden Reed, if you saw that one as well. And as Brettel says, we know that Love has the ability to make these kind of throws. We saw it a few times in training camp, and Rob Demovsky mentioned that Love had one really, really good day. So there's no question that he has that ability, and it seems so far that the issue is really the consistency and just building that chemistry with the offense. And then here's from Paul Brettel on Love's biggest weakness in an area of improvement. He said this: "Not surprisingly, Love needs to be more consistent. In that same practice where he connected to Watson downfield and placed that ball perfectly for Reed, he also bounced a pass off Quay Walker's chest and almost threw another near interception. Consistency starts with having a sound and repeatable process before the ball is released, and right now, that's what LaFleur is really evaluating Love on." LaFleur has said he's not as concerned with the results at this point of training camp, knowing that if the process is done correctly, the results will follow. What LaFleur means when he says process is getting in and out of the huddle efficiently, having good mechanics, a sound base in the pocket, rhythm, and timing when he throws, along with going through his progressions, and correct footwork. So the issue right now is consistency. We saw Bill Huber say that most days he's floating around 50% completion percentage, which isn't great. But as I said, I think this is going to, we all knew it could take a little bit of time for Love to really get to that level he needs to get, not only because of him being a young player, but also because of all the other young talent here, young pass catchers, and the fact that, the most experienced pass catchers here are second-year players, which I feel like oftentimes in the NFL isn't super common. And I think that Brian Gudekunst has said time and time again, Packers GM, throughout this offseason, that they really want to let these young guys get tons of snaps and tons of playing time. And Gudekunst even mentioned yesterday, he was asked about Mercedes Lewis, who just signed with the Bears, unfortunately. But he was asked why he didn't decide to bring Mercedes Lewis back, considering there's so many young players here on this offense. And Gudekunst basically said that if a guy like Mercedes Lewis was back, he would steal those snaps from two young rookie tight ends. And he says the only way for these guys to get better is to have that playing time. And so I think that Packers GM and the Packers front office, their plan is to try to get these young guys as much playing time as possible in 2023. And I think that, it could be to be expected that, especially in the first part of the season, there going to be some kind of growing pains as Love starts in some of his first games and all these rookies come in and try to figure things out. And I think that Brian Gutekunst really just wants these guys to get a ton of time under their belt in 2023. And while I think the Packers obviously hope that this can be a playoff caliber team, which I think is possible if things can click right for this offense, I think that the Packers are willing to maybe struggle slightly more than maybe they typically would, because of the willingness to let go of veteran players. They all knew they'd be bringing in this young talent, and the hope, I think, is that the more that this young talent can play, the faster they'll be ready to go and really live up to what I think the Packers thought when they drafted them, and they think that these guys can get to a higher level more quickly without all the different veteran players trying to steal targets from these guys. And so while a guy like a Mercedes Lewis, Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, while these guys probably right now would be more efficient and more dependable in this offense, odds are in the long run, these young tight ends, these young receivers, the more playing time they get, I would say right now their ceiling, could be higher than guys like Lazard, guys like Mercedes Lewis. And while Mercedes Lewis is a very good run blocker, he definitely does not have that pass catching ability of a Luke Musgrave, who, 6'6", insane, height, speed. And so the Packers, I think, are doing their best to try to get these guys going as fast as possible, and that's what comes with getting as many snaps as you can. And so that is pretty much it from these different reporters. I thought it'd be interesting to sort of share different perspectives just so we have an overarching idea of what is happening. And basically it seems like Love, he's made some nice plays, but there still isn't that consistency with the offense. So hopefully as training camp continues, as the preseason games come up, we'll sort of see that chemistry and consistency start to grow. And once the season comes around, we'll expect to see that growth week after week after week as these young players sort of get a hold and start to understand everything they're supposed to be doing and build that chemistry with Jordan Love. So thank you for watching. If you want to stay up to date with all things Packers, feel free to subscribe down below. But that is all for this one, and I'll see you guys next time.